What's going on, everybody? It's Max here, and today we are looking at Farthest Frontier, next game in our series, taking a look at indie games to see if they're right for you. This is a gorgeous colony builder in a similar style to games like Banished and Settlement Survival. I've had my hands on this in super early access before the game has even released, and I have about 40 or 50 hours in the game already prior to the release of it. So I want to show you this one. It's really near and dear to my heart. Can we just talk about the soundtrack, by the way, in the introduction? Oh my god, it's beautiful. Let's jump into the game, take a look at it, and see if it's the right one for you. Alright, so at the start of the game, your colonists have taken a look and seen, what's out there in the surrounding area here, and you need to place your starting town center. And the ideal is that you're placing this in a spot that has access to a bunch of resources. Now, lucky for us, we can actually see where all the resources are on the map. So there's some sand here, lots of sand here, a little deserty area in this spot. What I'm looking for is a spot where we can get maybe some iron ore from there. Maybe a spot with a little bit more wildlife, if possible. I actually don't see much wildlife on this map at all. Lots of coal, lots of iron, but no wildlife. Tons of wolves on this side, so let's avoid that area. I think we're gonna be better off maybe just taking a guess here and hoping that this spot here has a little bit more food and wildlife and things for us to forage, like these bird nests. So I'm gonna plop down our town center over here. And it begins. So all of our colonists here are individually controllable. They have names that you can rename if you'd like to. This one, of course, is going to be Max the Laborer. And you've got your typical colony builder tools, like the ability to harvest trees, for instance, for resources, and stone as well. You've got this pretty simplistic prioritization ability where you can kind of flag this and your pops will go over and do this more or less before anything else. It's not the most reliable to prioritize things, but they will generally set those as their priority. But for now, we need them to finish this town center. I'm just gonna uncheck that really quick and make sure that we get the wood, the logs needed to finish this off. In the build menu, from the start of the game, like from the very release of early access, there's gonna be actually a bunch of buildings that you can build in these three tiers 1, 2, and 3. Including different houses and storage, different food production, of course. You've got access to a hunting cabin or a forager's shack or a fishing shack to fish if we had any water on this map whatsoever, but we don't. So we're probably not going to do much fishing. We're probably going to rely pretty heavily on foraging. Now, in my few gameplays, I've actually noticed that there are different biomes with different bushes. So this sumac is something that I don't have access to in my other playthroughs, which is really interesting. I have access to hawthorn and to blueberry bushes, which I don't see here. So that's super curious. We also have an access to a decent amount of gold ore here, actually a really good amount of gold ore, which in the future we can actually turn into currency and kind of print our own currency, which is pretty cool. So with our town center built, let's get started. I guess we'll build a road here and a couple of homes. A couple of homes along the road, maybe like this. I actually really love the road building tool. You can build these natural feeling roads that aren't completely stick straight if you'd like to, or if you use the grid, you can build these straight roads as well. So that's actually a nice balance between sort of a natural feel and otherwise. What I would love to see them add to the game is those kind of desire paths, right? As your pops kind of go off on different routes or go off to bring resources from one place to another, I'd love to see desire paths built and created so that we could actually build roads along those paths. That would be really sweet. But for now, we're stuck with what we got. Now, you'll notice that some of the buildings in Tier 1 under Amenities and Services are actually locked. And that's because you have certain prerequisites to build before you can build these things. So in order to get a market, which we need to be able to distribute goods to the houses here as a job, rather than your population actually going and grabbing what they need every day, we're going to need a saw pit and a storehouse in storage. And to build the storehouse, we need a stockyard. So I'm gonna place a stockyard down where I think we'll get the most resources, probably on this side of the map, like that. Let's get some more roads built, like here. And I'll have them prioritize the stockyard. We also start with the storage cart, which we can move around. I'm just gonna get it out of the way because I think it interferes with building sometimes. Get this guy out of the way, maybe even closer to the houses, so that our population can grab the food from the back of this. And already off the off the start, we're being attacked by wolves. Now your population will actually run from wolves at a certain point, or run from attackers at a certain point. But your pops will come to help them out as well. And that's really neat. The pops don't just run kind of all willy-nilly. They actually do think about, can I fight this attacker? Can I even beat it in the group of population that we have here? And so they were able to take that out no problem. Now, that wolf was probably just a stray. I don't see any wolf dens in the area around our city, but we might contend with additional wolf attacks in the future if we end up too close to a wolf den. So our pops need some of the basic stuff. They need firewood for the winter. They also need a clean water source. So let's go ahead and build a well. Maybe here. More people await word to join your settlement. Amass a 4-month supply of food and 6 houses. We have a 5-month supply of food right now. And then this number actually shows you how much food will spoil over the next 12 months. So we don't have that much food stocked up, but I think what we were given at the start of the game is some root vegetables and smoked meat, which spoils a little bit slower than regular meat would. So that's pretty sweet. Let's build these roads like this on either side of our well. And then let's get those 6 houses down. So let's build a home here and a home here. And while I was doing that, somebody fell stricken with dehydration because the well hasn't been built. So let's make sure that we get that prioritized and built up. You can see, of course, over each individual house, not only the resources that it's lacking, if it's lacking firewood or water or food, but also where your sick residents are located. So you can kind of start to troubleshoot where the problems might be, right? This is probably also dehydration, yeah. So we definitely got to get that well built ASAP. The stock house is done. So or stockyard, I think it's called, right? Stockyard. So let's build the storehouse as well. And the difference between these two, I think the stockyard, yeah, stocks like raw resources like wood and firewood and planks, and the storehouse stocks everything else, food and shoes and clothing, all the things that your villagers need to live their lives. You can actually see the status of each villager, what tools they've got, what their clothing looks like, and what condition it's in. And this will give you a pretty good sense overall of what the condition of life is like in your settlement here. So this is almost finished. So get them access to water. And then while they're doing that, let's also make sure we get them access to food. Like a reliable source of food here. We've got a decent amount of food to go out and gather, so I think we're gonna rely on forager shacks for the start of the game. Let's build 2 of those. And eventually we'll build a crop field, but you know, for your first year, that's a lot of work to sow this field. If we place this down, you can see some of the sizing here. It can't be larger than 12 squares for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but you can see that as you increase this, it increases the potential yield of that field, as well as increasing the number of workers that can work there. So I found that there was sort of a sweet spot of workers here where you only need 3 workers, but you'll produce 1,500 food, right? If you increase this, you've got 4 workers working there, which seems like a waste of a worker if you can't utilize their full potential there. So just something to keep in mind as you're playing. But let's build some roads here around this. I think roads speed up their movement speed. I'm not 100% sure. It may just be that they're kind of pretty, oh yeah, it says allow your villagers to travel faster. And then you can always upgrade these to cobblestone roads, which requires some stone. And I think they go even faster on that. So let's get that going, and let's also get a firewood splitter. And we'll have them maybe set up like right here, so that we get some firewood turned into firewood from logs. Prioritize these. Not sure. I think they're working on clearing out the area for our path. Not the biggest importance right now. I feel like the daily necessities are a little bit more important than that, so let's just get those prioritized. So at the top, you can see the game takes place over 12 months, and we're approaching the... we're in midsummer right now, so approaching autumn, and different bushes will actually have different amounts of resources based on what time of year it is. So I think this hawthorn, yeah, ripens in late fall. The sumac seems to be ripe in the summer, though not particularly pleasant to eat. I think that's just shown by how many berries you get from each bush. Your pops do have preferences for what food they eat. They'd like to eat a varied diet, but they will eat, sumac, and they'll eat bird eggs or eggs, whatever it is. No problem at all, without complaining. Now, what's cool about this is a lot of games, like I think like Banished did actually, you would have to put the forager shack in the forest where the goods are. But in Farthest Frontier, you can actually take the target radius and move it. Now, it has the side effect that your whatever worker is working here has to go out to the bush, gather it, and then come back to the location here. But it's really cool that you can kind of reposition this. If I want those 3 bird eggs at the top of this circle, we can do something like this. Now we got 2 of them. And now they will work in that radius. And I can take this forager shack and have them work in a different radius. Maybe, I should have taken a look and seen if there were even any resources down here. Let's do this to grab these eggs here and the sumac on this side. Cool. Am I pronouncing that right? Is it sumac? It sounds wrong. So we got the nice little start to a colony here. We're gonna finish off the 6th house, and you'll notice that there's this little icon over the well. The well actually replenishes with water, but the well's replenishment of water is based on the tree coverage of the area around the well. I don't know if that means I have to put trees directly over it, but I think it might actually help. So what we could do in the future, because I don't think we have the resources to do this now, is we could place new trees over the well here to protect it from evaporation, which is pretty cool. I thought that was a neat little element. Similarly, in terms of realism in this game, you've got the crop fields. I want to see if I can build a small crop field to show this. Let's just build this this isn't ideal, but at least they can get started on it. Crop fields need to be tilled by workers, and so this is actually going to take them a little while to build, but at least they'll get part way through it before wintertime comes. Cool. We've got Kayla here splitting firewood, and our population actually in these houses are going and picking it up from the firewood splitter. Soon they'll be able to pick it up from the storehouse, which is a little bit closer to them. And we need to get our 6 food stores, or 6 months of food storage, in order to have more population interested in even joining our settlement. So that might take us a little bit of time. Let's speed up using the time function down here at the bottom. Let's speed that up just a bit. I don't know if you've noticed, but the soundtrack of the game is actually changing as you play, as you go through the seasons. So we've been listening to, the summertime or the early autumn track, and you can see even the leaves of the trees falling in front of you over the screen, which I just find super beautiful. The change of the season from summer to fall had all of the tree colors change, and the color of the grasses change as well, which is just incredible. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It really just thoughtfully put in there, I think, in this way where the developers really cared about the presentation of their game. Now, you can always grab, who are these people? I can't interact with them. I don't know if they're our villagers, or are they, oh, okay. Incoming travelers wish to immigrate. I've never seen this actually happen, so I didn't realize they physically came to your town and asked you to immigrate. 6 people have arrived at your village. Will you accept them in your village or turn them away? Definitely, let's accept them. We've got the food to support them, though you saw that our food stores decreased a little bit. Obviously, this is going to help us in things like building out this farm, which would be nice. So let's build, because I think we're going to rely much more on crop fields, though I will say we have started on an incredibly difficult seed. The fertility here is pretty poor. It's 49%, not just basically average fertility, if that. Notice that any less than this and you basically don't produce food here at all. That's pretty rough. So we're gonna have to take up as much fertile, or sort of, I'm gonna put fertile in heavy air quotes, fertile land as possible for planting. So let's build another crop field there. I showed this a little bit, but the professions, or the overview of your city is here, and you can micromanage how many people are farmers, how many people are foragers. This is pretty typical Vanished stuff or Settlement Survival if you've played those games. Very, very typical stuff, similar to what you've experienced in the past if you've played those. Cool. So we've got the start of things here. We finished our stockhouse, which means we can actually put down the... Oh, no, just kidding. We need the saw pit as well. So let's go into resources and build a saw pit. Now, this is one of those cool elements that I really like. You have to actually kind of be thoughtful of how you build your cities, because when you place certain buildings like the saw pit, even the firewood chopper, I think, it has an effect on the desirability of homes. Desirability is kind of the stat that shows whether people want to continue to live in your city. And it has an effect on your villagers' individual happiness. It has an effect on whether that house will even be able to upgrade to the next tier of home. So you've got to be thoughtful about where you place this stuff. If we put it too close to our homes here, it'll actually affect their desirability and our population's happiness. So I'm going to put this, let's put it right next to the firewood splitter on the other side of town, and make sure that they get that done. Let's also dial in a little bit more harvesting of trees. Cool. And let's have them do that. Our storehouse will show us some warnings about when food is lost to spoilage, or when, things like that happen. So we could go into the storage and actually build a root cellar. And the root cellar is more likely to preserve food from month to month. So I'm gonna build this a little bit closer to our homes here. And oh, you know what? Actually, we can fit it in. I'll delete this. We can fit it in right between our homes right here. And that'll be even closer for them to pick up when they need food. Cool. The saw pit's almost built. Honestly, the game so far, from the 40, 50 hours that I've played of it, it's really reminiscent of Banished, but in the future, as your settlement grows larger, you will start to be attacked by raiders because you now have something worth taking. And you're going to have to defend your city with different towers and defenses. You can build up a militia at the barracks and have your soldiers trained with different weaponry. There at the barracks, it alludes to soldiers are needed to deal with heavily armored attackers and siege rams. I haven't seen siege rams yet. I'm not sure if that's just because I don't have the right walls in the settlement that I've been building on stream on Twitch, or if that's because they haven't been added into the game. But I saw that and I was actually super excited because I'm really curious if siege rams will be added. As far as I understand, there's no way for you to go out and raid other towns. Other towns aren't generated in the game for you, but that might be something that they're going to add in the future. I'm not quite sure what their priorities are, though I believe the developers would like to probably focus on optimization. There are a couple of optimization issues, which, you should expect in an early access game. At this point, that's pretty typical. But more or less, the game runs pretty nicely. And look at this transition from autumn into winter. If you hear the soundtrack, you've got the rustling of wind, you've got the dead trees creaking now that we're in winter. atmospherically, the game is beautiful, and I want to see if I can show you an example of the sound design of this game as well, if we speed this up a bit, because all of our pops just went inside to sort of buckle down for a super cold day, deadly cold temperatures. That will actually affect whether your population will work or not, and depending on what the weather is like in different seasons, you might get a really temperate winter where your pops are totally fine going outside and working, or you might get a really awful winter where they literally cannot work outside or they will die. This, of course, is also affected by what kind of clothing they're wearing. If they have hide coats, they can work in freezing temperatures. But if they don't have hide coats, they might either die to the elements or they might stay inside. So I wanted to show this. We've got 3 people working on this tree, and listen to the chopping of the tree. Each chopping sound is actually correlated to the animation of the character. So it's not just a random loop being played. Every single time they swing their axe, you'll hear a chop sound, which I think is so cool. It's such a detailed element to the sound design. This guy getting chopped in the back. Yikes by his wife, unfortunately. I think they've got a little falling out they need to work through. But the attention to detail of sound of this game is just incredible, and something I haven't seen in most games in the genre, maybe ever? I'm not even sure, honestly, how long it's been. But it's pretty neat that they thought that much through. And I'll be honest, from what I've played so far, 40 to 50 hours in, the amount of tiers isn't crazy expansive, but it'll probably take you, I don't even know, 15, 20 hours maybe of gameplay to get through tier 3 and finish tier 3 by building all of the buildings, by making everybody completely happy and filling all of their needs, by building every single one of the furniture workshop and the brewery and the glass maker, and doing all of these things. Probably 15 to 20 hours of one save. Now, you can always challenge yourself. I talked to the devs, there's no hard cap on population. So right now on Twitch, we're actually going through the challenge of trying to get 500 population in a city all at a single time. So I want to show you what that looks like, just so you can see a little bit of the mid to late game play and see if this game is worth it for you, if that's something that you'd be interested in. All right, this is my late game playthrough. I'm about, what has it been, 31 years actually into the game, and we've expanded our market out into a much larger area. We've got houses within the marketplace area that are being fulfilled by the market to drop off food. We have a couple of resource issues that we've been struggling with over the past 30 years or so, including firewood is almost completely out, which is a little bit scary. It's been hard to manage 300 or so population, and you can see that the game is sort of chugging a little bit, but I want to push it to 500. That's our goal. We've got a whole bunch of different farms where you've got crop rotation. You have to actually rotate your crops, otherwise the crops will get diseased and won't yield as many crops as you'd like. I've actually faced that issue as well. You have to deal with elements like fertility, where you can increase these numbers by going to a compost yard and using the compost to compost into your fields and increase their fertility, or by choosing crop rotations that actually have a positive impact on fertility versus a negative impact on the earth. We have an entire area here dedicated to the production of resources, and we keep this far enough away from our population that they don't get upset by the negative radius of things like a soap shop or a tannery, which notoriously really stinks because of the chemicals that they use to tan coats and hides and stuff. I'm working on building this out to 500 people, so we've got actually 3 different market locations that we're building up, and we've got a defensive wall that we're starting to slowly upgrade, if you can see on this side, to stone to prevent attacks from raiders, or at least deter attacks from raiders. Raiders are actually smart enough to bypass your stone walls and attack you from a different side of your colony, so you have to be careful about placing defenses like these lookout towers, and think about which sides are your weakest that raiders might try to come and attack you at. So there's a lot of thought that went into the game and a lot of different elements that you have to manage. I honestly am loving it. But I would love to know from you, does this game look like something you're interested in? And if so, what kind of things would you like to see from the game moving forward? Let me know down in the comments, and if this was helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I will see you all in our next one. See you soon.